Let's look at World Space Week. We have many things that can help you within our Purple Mash resources. One of the first places you might like to look, you'll notice next week that it'll be in the featured panel over here. But if we go to the teachers area and the featured panel calendar, you'll note that there are all sorts of wonderful activities happening throughout the school year, one of them being World Space Week. And I can click straight on this hyperlink to take me through to exactly the same folder that you would be directed to from the featured panel. This has loads of ready-made resources for you. They're all adaptable, they're all printable on A4 paper. It just starts you off with some fantastic writing projects, as you see, some paint projects, postcards, the ever popular mash cams, and a few of the creative tools at the bottom. A number of activities that you may like to look at, looking at some of them from the 2 code. We'll look at a little bit more detail at these as we go through the webinar. You can, of course, think a little bit more outside the box and do some searches. For example, aliens. Who doesn't like a good bit of alien work? You can see it covers things like branching yes-no databases. We're looking at writing projects again, pairs making, covering all different areas of the curriculum. These are some books from the wonderful Serial Mash. If I go inside the aliens folder itself, you'll see again writing projects, which can be printed off on A4 paper. Lovely paint projects. All of these are editable. You can adapt them according to your particular age group of pupils. You see here even more at the bottom. A quick indication of whether the pupils are going to be able to deal with them in their current format, sort of age appropriateness, would be just to hover over the actual resource. This is showing you in the top left corner that it's cross-curricular, and in the top right corner those 3 little purple blocks are saying that when it was created, it was thought that nursery reception in year 1 would interact with this most smoothly. However, you could use it with other age groups. You would just edit and adapt it accordingly. I go back outside and into my search again. I could put in something like planets. Again, it just brings up anything that it can find within the whole of Purple Mash that you may find useful. It's got a little label on it, that's how the system finds it. We can see some PDFs that you can print off here. We've got the 2-question branching yes-no databases. You can create your own one on planets. There's loads of useful information already stored inside here. The thing we also have is a database quiz which works alongside the to investigate. I'll show you that one. I just go back to tools and I go to investigate. You then find that you've got the alien database quiz and you've got a database on planets. But to be able to actually access the information for those, you need to open the to investigate itself first, and then you can actually run the database. And here we can start interrogating it by just asking it to tell us if it's got a number of moons, and the number of moons are going to be less than 10. Okay. And it moves everything around for us. So we can answer the questions in the quiz by using the information in the database and getting it to sort it and reorganise it. Works the same for the others as well. Back on our home page. So you can see that you could use what's going to come in the featured panel. You can also do a quick keyword search up here. Another thing that you may not have thought about is in the maths area, looking at some of the maths tools, some of the maths games that are available. So in the games here, you see that we have Maths City. We just launched this one. And we can see that we can play around in the space area. Lots of sorting and grouping and matching activities, little races going on with these particular ones here. So not always obvious that something's available, but worth having a good look around. Other things you might consider, again going back through some of those tools that we saw earlier, click on Tools. We have some aspects of code. If we look at the To Go and launch that, and we have these lovely play mats available. If I just click, go through onto the second one. Okay, I can then start my rocket from anywhere I wish. I can also alter the instructions that are available to the programmer just by going to the little settings cog up the top here. So you can see now the degree of complexity is far greater. The instructions available allow diagonals as well. So if I'm trying to get up to this particular green planet up here, I can click and off it goes. I can click and it moves, and then I click once more and we're there, landed on the planet. A feature that you may not realise that's available here, I'll just rewind this one, is within these tools, general, allow programming, and this means that pupils can now start to create their own first bit of code. We could switch the grid on or off here if we wanted to, but without doing any typing at all, we can then start thinking about direction. We're going that way, so we just drag the direction in. I could count how many, let's just see, I'll guess 6, and then I'm going to go that direction. I'm going to guess 2, I think, and then I can run my program. It gives you a direct correlation between what's happening on the screen and how it's represented at the side here. So obviously I've gone a little bit too far, I've overshot. I can debug my program to make it one less in there, rewind and run it again. Really nice visual so that the pupils can see exactly how this relates to this over here. You can see you can do slightly longer programs, but you can also start to introduce things like loops, repeats. So rather than having this done 2 times and written in the boxes twice, it will just take itself through 2 times. You can do it for prediction. Where are we going to end up if we do this a certain number of times? Really handy stuff. Always nice to see as well that you get these lovely videos that explain the use of a tool. You can see them.
I've just opened To Go and I'm welcomed by this.
And so too can your pupils. That means that they can be a bit more resourceful and self-reliant, and they can help themselves out and free you up to be able to do something with other pupils in your class. So we've had To Go. That's one of the really nice ways that you could look slightly sideways at working with stuff in World Space Week. How about creating some music, perhaps? I just launched this one. Very, very simple to be able to just create nice bits of rhythm. On, off, 1, 0, 1, 0, yes, no, yes, no. We're looking at some code in certain ways here as well. I'll put a little bit on the bottom, see what it's like. Very easily change the percussion instrument. Handy stuff. You can change the number of beats in a bar very easily, and when you're happy you can then save it. This can be used because it's mashable if you were creating some form of a storybook, if you were doing some code and animation, if you wanted to put some sound in, it can be put on in the background. So you can create all the different aspects of the things that you're creating using the various different tools within your Purple Mash. Another thing you might also consider using would be the To Animate. In this one you've got loads of different examples already of types of animations that you can do, but it's highly intuitive. If I just launch it, you can see on here I could make it I'll just show you quickly the two different types so that something appears to be moving across the screen. So if I just take that as being my first slide, I want to make it like Peter Pan and his shadow so that it's always attached to the previous bit. It's going to be, it'll be seamless as we move across. I go on to my next and I just draw. And I go on to the next one, draw. I can add more if I wish to. Here, and I can just play. And that appears to move across the screen all by itself. Another thing that you can also do with it is if you were looking at perhaps thinking of having a rocket taking off, you could then draw your rocket. This is going to be a very quick drawing of a rocket. So I could draw my rocket. Here we are, ready. Chance of me drawing that rocket again in exactly the same way, very, very slim. So I could then drag this one to here. It's identical. Now I can start putting a little bit of smoke coming out the bottom of it perhaps, because it's getting ready to go. And then I can drag that one across to the next, and I could perhaps put some flames starting to come out the bottom instead. You're getting the general idea. And then I can drag that across to there and perhaps just get it in a big cloud. Oh, they're not very big. Let's get that a bit bigger. There we go. Clouds just before it starts to take off. And then when we run that one, you can see it starting to move. Obviously they were very, very quick. You can see the general sort of idea of what's happening with that particular one. You can also select a whole area on here and you can start to move things. As you can see, selected that whole bit. So again, that can be quite handy, and you can then sort of delete extra bits that are underneath it. You can get quite sophisticated with that particular program. Another one that you may also want to look at, I think, would be the code itself in the guided lessons. So I'll go to Tools again, into my code, and if I look inside here, we can see that there are a variety of different ones that might be fairly appropriate. It just depends on the age group of your pupils and the particular type of coding they've been doing already. You may find sending the rocket to space is just going to be a little bit too advanced for some of your pupils, but it's worthwhile knowing that it is actually in there. You can't just jump straight into that and expect the children are going to be able to do that bit of code, but what you can do is you can start them off on their journey by looking at some of these slightly more simple ones down near the bottom. What you find when you open them up is that you always have a nice video guide at the start, so it's explaining to the pupils how the actual coding is going to start working for them. All of the answers to these activities, of course, are inside this folder here, and you'll be able to just take a look at the chimp solutions. If you wanted to see how sparklers or rockets worked, just go to the appropriate one. To go all the way down to 16 for that one. Oops. See, on here it's showing you exactly what you'd be expecting to see in the coding window for your pupils. So you can just go and have a look at it yourself first. You can see if you think your pupils are up to that particular part in their code, and start your rocket journey in the right place. Something else you'd probably like to use, if I just go to the tools, talking about rockets already, is to design and make. If you're looking at your design technology perhaps, what you could be looking at is making the original prototype shapes to create a rocket. If I just look through here, I've got some of those shapes. If I start off with my cone, maybe. Not particularly cone-like at the moment, it's a bit angular, but what is good about this is that you can just start adding extra parts to your original shape. Once we've got those, we can start to then think about how that's going to alter. You can see on here, this is now making a completely different, slightly more rounded shape. This can be printed off. You see it has the little bits at the side where you'd actually be able to cut it, glue it and stick it. So you're making everything so it can be fastened together. It's just giving the pupils an indication of the sort of shapes that they're going to need to create if they're going to be making a sort of a hands-on real version of a rocket. Very powerful piece of kit there. We've also got the lovely to paint, but also to paint a picture. In to paint a picture, if you're not aware already, you can just go from the simple, just creating a colour background. I think we'll have a nice purple background here. And then if I want to add some bits to it, I can then just select the thing that I'd like to do. Just to give you an indication of what it can do, we'll do some splashes on here. Okay, so we're doing sort of like meteorites and stars and all that kind of stuff. I can then use that colour background if I wish to, and I'll choose a yellow. Let's make, oh, that's a big star. I can make a slightly smaller one in the background. I can put all sorts of different effects onto here. You can of course go back and choose other effects that are inside our box. The wet paint, that dribbling down. Yes, we're going to use the same, but just add some extra on top. Of course, if you do go to the burger menu and you save this, it's going to be available as a background, perhaps for using in your animations, in some stories, in bits of code maybe. Really, really nice. You can also share it if you go to your display boards or drop it into some blogs as well. We've gone through a fair few ideas for you there, looking at resources available, your Purple Mash, and as you could see, they were going right across the whole of the curriculum. Hope you found something that you'd be able to use with your pupils and have a really good time in your World Space Week.